I just spoke to Michael backstage, and he said basically you two are his Valentines today.
That's so nice.
Come
I haven't
on.
received my chocolates yet.
Emily Blunt just destroyed Blake Lively live on air for doing what Blake does best, ruining people's lives for absolutely no reason.
God.
Do you remember what you were laughing about?
I think I was worried that she was flashing her vagina.
It's practically a hobby for Blake at this point, inserting herself where she's not wanted and blowing things up. But Emily? She ended Blake without even lifting a finger. Blake Lively absolutely outdo everyone by not just faking a friendship, but by straight up targeting Emily Blunt's life like it was a clearance rack at a designer store. According to Vanity Fair in 2024, Blake wasn't content stealing a little attention. She wanted the whole damn life package. Like, why have your own identity when you can just leech off someone else's stability and marriage and career at the same time, right? Let's go back to 2022, when things first started getting deliciously messy. Chanel hosted this ultra-private dinner in Paris. You know, the kind where A-listers pretend to be humble while wearing $50,000 worth of jewelry. Witnesses from that dinner say Blake practically glued herself to John Krasinski the entire night, like super glue. It was industry chatter at first, but the photos were the real kicker. John and Blake laughing way too hard, posing way too close, and oh, would you look at that? Emily, not in a single frame. It's almost like she was the one hosting the party but forgot to show up. How convenient. Those Chanel dinner photos are giving weird energy Blake and John in every shot. Where's Emily? And if that wasn't messy enough, Blake just had to sprinkle her special brand of crazy a little further. 2 days after the dinner, Blake posted a photo of white orchids on Instagram with the caption, "For the men who get it." Real subtle, Blake. Totally not psycho at all. And just in case there was any doubt about who those flowers were for, John Krasinski's assistant got the exact same floral arrangement, with no card, no explanation, no shame. Because, you know, when you want to destroy a woman's marriage, you might as well do it with a smile and an aesthetic Instagram post.
And he said, let me see. He said, yeah, he said, you an actor? And I said, yeah. He goes, what do I know you from? And I said, I don't know if you'd know. I mean, we did the American version of your British Office. Strike one. Oh.
Now, normal people would clap back, right? They'd maybe expose her, maybe send their own shady Instagram post, but not Emily Blunt. She played it the Hollywood way, the real Hollywood way. Silent warfare. She didn't post, she didn't tweet, she didn't shade. She just casually started unfollowing, untagging, and systematically erasing every single trace of Blake from her social media. Like Blake was an embarrassing ex she never wanted to admit existed. And that was just the beginning. Then came Tether. The psychological thriller that was supposed to be Emily's baby. Early 2023, Deadline quietly dropped the announcement that Emily and Blake would be co-starring. But what they didn't shout from the rooftops was the fact that Blake Lively wasn't even supposed to be in this damn movie. Tether was originally a two-hander between Emily and a new British actress. A fresh face, a real actress. Not some Instagram poser cosplaying as an indie queen. But of course, once the studio caught wind that Blake wanted in, they folded like a lawn chair at a 4th of July barbecue. Blake had no thriller experience, but apparently when you show up with enough PR sparkle, you can hijack anything, even someone else's dream project. The moment she got in, she didn't waste time. Blake rolled into the first read-through late, not fashionably late, annoyingly late. And instead of actually focusing on the work, she started reworking wardrobe notes. She didn't like her outfits? Boo-hoo. The script was a psychological thriller, not a Vogue editorial, Blake. But she wasn't done. No, the woman had a full checklist of ways to ruin things. She kept demanding that her character be emotionally misunderstood instead of just, you know, the villain she was clearly written to be. Industry insiders leaked that Blake was already getting labeled disruptive on set. And the cherry on top? She tried charming the director, who just happened to be a close friend of John Krasinski. And how did Blake attempt this charm offensive? By constantly bringing up how she and John had the same sense of humor. Because nothing says, trust me with your movie, like name-dropping your almost target.
I love that show. the UK version. I was like, I get it. And then he said, who are you visiting? I said, my wife. And he said, is she an actress? And I said, yeah. He said, would I know her? I said, I don't know. And he said, what's her name? And I said, Emily Blunt, as he was writing something, and he went, you? You. Yeah, and he goes, all right, get out of here.
And just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, Blake decided to stage a one-woman therapy session, live on set. There was a pivotal monologue scene planned for Tether. It was supposed to be restrained, powerful, emotional, without being dramatic. So naturally, Blake did the exact opposite. She sobbed loudly, on a line that wasn't even hers. Then she yeeted a prop chair across the set like she was auditioning for a reality show meltdown. And just to make it extra spicy, she started accusing Emily's character of gaslighting her, right there in the middle of the take. Zero rehearsal, zero warning, peak unprofessionalism. Meanwhile, Emily Blunt did what queens do. She stayed locked in character, didn't flinch, didn't blink, didn't even breathe differently. Absolute icicle behavior. People on set started whispering about Blake's emotional instability after that. Like, imagine throwing a public tantrum and still thinking you're the main character.
Did you girls drive here together? Did you get ready together?
We did drive here
She's
together.
my chauffeur.
Did you come and pick her up?
We took an Uber. No, we took an Uber. Yeah.
Yeah. I just spoke to Michael backstage, and he said basically you two are his Valentines today.
That's so nice.
Come on.
But hold on to your popcorn, because Blake wasn't finished wrecking the movie. After turning the pivotal scene into her personal therapy hour, she demanded her own private editor. Not a second pair of eyes, not a script consultant, an actual editor whose job was to basically turn her unhinged, off-script tantrums into something that wouldn't get her laughed out of Cannes. And guess what? That editor lasted a grand total of 3 days before resigning and signing an NDA, probably just to erase the mental trauma. Blake's drama didn't just kill the vibe, it killed the budget too. The production budget inflated by a jaw-dropping 22% because of her antics. 22%. That's the financial equivalent of setting a Louis Vuitton bag on fire just because you didn't like the zipper. And somehow, after all of this, Blake still acted surprised when the industry started treating her like a risk instead of a rising star. If you spend every day turning your co-stars' dreams into your personal therapy sessions, throwing chairs, rewriting scripts, flirting with married men, and bleeding budgets dry, yeah, newsflash, Blake. You don't get a participation trophy for that. April 2023, the official first look at Tether dropped. And surprise, surprise, Blake was nowhere to be found. Every single press photo, every teaser, every media blurb, Emily Blunt solo, standing on a windy cliff like a queen who had just survived both a hurricane and a Blake Lively tantrum. No Blake in sight. It's almost like Emily pulled a reverse Uno card and professionally ghosted Blake from her own PR plan. And Blake, because she's Blake, immediately ran to Instagram to throw herself a pity party. Just saw the teaser for Tether Wild, how they framed it as an Emily Blunt solo vehicle. Wasn't this a two-hander with Blake Lively? She posted a desperate caption whining, "This one's for anyone who ever felt erased." Real subtle, real brave. Except the fans weren't buying it anymore. Instead of sympathy, the comment section absolutely destroyed her. People clapped back with gems like, "Oh, girl, you erased the script, sit down," and "Maybe if you didn't throw chairs, you'd still be on the posters." Honestly, Brutal doesn't even begin to cover it. Meanwhile, Emily Blunt was out here dropping quotes like she was slicing through butter with a katana. At the BAFTAs, when someone dared to bring up the drama, she hit them with, "You don't need to talk over people when you've already outlasted them." No shade needed, no screaming, just cold, hard facts served fresher than Blake's Instagram meltdowns. And if you think Blake's team took this lying down, think again. Leaked messages showed her PR flunkies begging for equal promo coverage, crying to editors, demanding that Blake be shoved into Tether's narrative like it wasn't already too late. And guess what? Everyone ignored them. Just straight up left those emails on read like they were spam from a fake Gucci giveaway. Now, you would think Blake would take the hint, crawl under a designer rock, and let it go. But no. The clown show had only just begun. Heather was heading to Cannes. You know, the Oscars, but with better outfits and more shade. And when the official Cannes lineup dropped, Emily Blunt's name was there in bold, golden letters. And Blake Lively? She wasn't just missing. She was erased. Not in the cast list, not in the press kits, not even a sad little RSVP next to maybe attending. Nothing. It was like she had been abducted by aliens who also worked in Hollywood PR. So what did Blake do? Well, in classic Blake fashion, she tried to spin it. She posted a full glam photo on Instagram, captioned, "Sometimes the invite just gets lost." Oh, honey, the only thing that got lost was your credibility. While Blake was out here playing the world's saddest violin for herself, Emily was casually living her best life. Sipping wine in France with John Krasinski, looking like she had never even heard of Blake Lively, let alone worked with her. Journalists noticed too. One Vanity Fair writer straight up shaded Blake by pointing out how Emily showed up for what she actually helped create. Translation: Blake was about as useful to Tether as a screen door on a submarine. And if that wasn't humiliating enough, a leaked PR memo sealed the deal. Apparently behind closed doors, Blake was now considered potential brand volatility, recommend low visibility positioning. In other words, liability alert, do not resuscitate. Imagine building your whole brand on being the cool, effortless queen of America's heart, and then getting benched harder than a reality show contestant on night one. At this point, any normal person would pack it up, maybe move to a remote farm, maybe learn pottery, but not Blake Lively. No. She decided it was time for a full PR stunt meltdown. Since she couldn't walk the Cannes carpet, she cooked up the saddest plan B ever, a low-rent viewing party in New York City. She rounded up a bunch of Instagram influencers. Yes, literal influencers, not critics, not actors, and threw herself a pity screening. It was supposed to be intimate and authentic, but ended up looking like a sponsored ad for emotional desperation. Critics didn't even pretend to care. Variety tore through the pity party like it was tissue paper, calling Emily Blunt's performance in Tether brutally restrained, and saying that casting anyone other than Blunt would have been catastrophic. Translation: Thank God Blake got sidelined, or else Tether would have ended up as a blooper reel. Hollywood Reporter didn't hold back either. They roasted the movie in a single line. Emily carried it alone. Alone. As in, Blake added absolutely nothing except unnecessary drama, a ballooning budget, and maybe a few extra therapy bills. But wait, it gets even juicier. IndieWire stepped in and went nuclear. They openly mocked the fact that Blake was even considered for the role in the first place, writing, "Thank God for second chances." And when a publication that mainstream says the quiet part out loud, it's over. It's not gossip anymore, it's gospel. At this point, it was clear Blake wasn't just erased. She was actively being dragged out of the Hollywood conversation by critics, casting agents, and the audience all at once. Imagine trying to act like the wounded hero of your own story, while literally everyone, fans, journalists, insiders, are pointing at you and laughing. Imagine orchestrating a fake viewing party, posting glam selfies about lost invites, and begging for sympathy while your ex-co-star is in France winning hearts without breaking a sweat. And through it all, Emily Blunt never broke character. No snarky tweets, no public tears, no tacky pity parties, just pure, cold-blooded dominance. Blake wanted the spotlight so badly she was willing to burn everything down to get it. But she forgot that in Hollywood, the spotlight is a mirror, and when the smoke clears, all that's left is the mess you made. There's just something magical about watching a fake friendship collapse in real time, isn't there? Especially when one half was clout chasing so hard, you could practically see the desperation dripping off the designer outfits. Flashback to 2018, New York Fashion Week. The moment that should have been a warning to the entire industry.
So it might have been something to do with that. Zendaya doesn't look very happy, though, with our jokes.
Emily Blunt and Blake Lively, sitting side by side at the Michael Kors show, pretending to be besties, while Zendaya sat next to them looking like she was plotting her exit strategy. During a Vanity Fair lie detector test in 2020, Emily finally admitted what was really going on. She joked that she thought Blake was about to flash her vagina during the show. And honestly, at this point, would anyone even be surprised if Blake did? Anything for attention, right?
I think I was worried that she was flashing her vagina.
And let's not forget Zendaya's face. Pure, undiluted, secondhand embarrassment. It went viral instantly. While Blake and Emily laughed like middle schoolers sharing an inside joke at the back of the class, Zendaya sat there looking absolutely over it. Now, Zendaya later clarified on Twitter that she wasn't shading them. She claimed she was just focused on the runway, which honestly, even if true, doesn't change the fact that the entire world saw exactly what it was. Blake trying way too hard to steal the spotlight in a room full of actual stars.
This Fashion Week moment of you and Blake Lively once went viral.
Yeah, look at us. Oh my God.
Do you remember what you were laughing about?
I think I was worried that she was flashing her vagina.
But Blake wasn't done clinging just yet. Around Valentine's Day 2018, Emily cracked another little joke, one that flew under the radar back then, but hits different now. When asked about her Valentine's plans, Emily said she was going to crash Blake and Ryan's date night.
I just spoke to Michael backstage, and he said basically you two are his Valentines today.
That's so nice.
Come
I
on.
never received my-
Now, normal people would laugh and move on. But knowing what we know now, it's pretty obvious Emily was throwing soft shade at Blake's desperate attempts to latch onto her and John Krasinski like a third wheel from hell. Seriously, if clout chasing was an Olympic sport, Blake would have swept gold, silver, and bronze that night.
I'm gonna
Holding each
crash.
other on that red
It
carpet.
felt kind of cozy.
Looking back, all the signs were there. The fake friendship, the forced laughs, the thirsty selfies, the nonstop need for validation. Everyone was just too polite to say anything. Blake was the human equivalent of a desperate Instagram filter, smoothing out the chaos and pretending everything was #blessed. But no amount of curated posts could hide what was really going on underneath. A full-blown identity crisis masquerading as a career. And then Karma decided it was time to clock in. Fast forward to April 2023, when Hollywood finally stopped pretending and started doing what it does best. Quietly canceling someone without ever sending a memo. An internal agency document leaked. And guess whose name was sitting right there in bright red embarrassment? Blake Lively, labeled a high visibility risk, with a shiny new recommendation: avoid for prestige projects. Translation? Hollywood realized Blake was no longer a safe investment. She wasn't cool. She wasn't bankable. She was one bad PR meltdown away from being the next inspirational cautionary tale they teach in PR 101. Reps started ghosting her. Casting directors stopped calling. Stylists who once begged to dress her suddenly forgot she existed. It was like someone flipped a switch, and poof! Blake became invisible faster than her character development and Tether. Meanwhile, Emily Blunt was thriving like she had just unlocked a cheat code to Hollywood domination. She quietly rebooted Tether without Blake, retitling it Saltwater. And guess what? No tantrums, no budget blow-ups, no thirsty Instagram captions begging for attention. Just a clean, drama-free rollout. And because Karma likes to leave receipts, guess who hyped up Saltwater's trailer? Reese Witherspoon, Zendaya, Florence Pugh, basically a who's who of Hollywood's least messy, most respected women. No Blake reposts, no fake smiles, no half-hearted congratulations, just pure support for Emily and her vision. Blake might have thought she was going to ride the coattails of the A-list forever, but turns out you actually have to be talented and likable to stay there. And Emily dropped the final nuke. She bought the Tether rights. Quietly, strategically, through a third-party holding company, because Emily plays chess while Blake's still figuring out how to set up the board. Then, instead of casting herself in the reboot, Emily handed the lead role to a 23-year-old unknown British theater actress. No fame, no baggage, no Instagram thirst traps, just pure talent. When asked why she didn't star in it herself, Emily shrugged and said, "I've already lived it. It's time for someone else to speak it." Cold, calculated, iconic. Meanwhile, Blake was probably at home refreshing her notifications and wondering why her phone was so quiet. Because saltwater didn't just exist, it exploded. It topped Apple TV Plus for 3 straight weeks. Emily snagged her first Emmy nomination for Best Actress in a limited series. Critics called the show a masterpiece of restrained storytelling. Not a single chair thrown. Not a single Instagram pity party required. And Blake? Well, Blake's career didn't just slow down. It hit a wall at 100 miles per hour and disintegrated on impact. Her Instagram feed, once a nonstop carousel of glam shots, brand campaigns, and aggressively curated realness, froze in time. No new campaigns, no movie announcements, no red carpets, just silence. An echo chamber of what could have been if she had known how to stay in her own lane. At the end of the day, Blake Lively didn't just lose a role. She lost the narrative. She lost the goodwill. She lost the ability to convince anyone she was the victim of anything other than her own choices. Emily Blunt didn't have to rant. She didn't have to post passive-aggressive tweets. She didn't have to subtly shade anyone through Instagram stories. She just waited. She watched. And when the moment was right, she ended the entire saga without even raising her voice. Blake thought she could rewrite the story by crying a little louder, smiling a little harder, posting a little thirstier. But Emily reminded everyone that sometimes the loudest thing you can say is nothing at all. And now Blake Lively's Hollywood fairy tale isn't just over. It's been quietly boxed up, archived, and erased, just like she tried to erase the truth behind Tether.